I'm JP Tuesday.
And I'm Kiki Cannon. As lifelong Disney fans, the work of countless talented Disney creatives have shaped our lives.
Now, as the Disney catalog expands, we're taking a journey through film and television to discover if that spark that shaped us as children lives on in adulthood.
Does your favorite Disney media still cast that same spell? Join us as we find out. We are Rewatching the Magic.
Hi, Kiki.
How funky is your chicken? How funky is your chicken? How loose is your goose? Our goose is totally loose. So come on, all you hot fans. Come on, all you hot fans, and shake your caboose. Shake your caboose. Yay!
In every generation, there is a chosen one. She alone will stand against the vampires, the demons, and the forces of darkness. She is the Slayer. That's not the version we're talking about today. We are talking about Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie, the 1992 movie that would later inspire the hit television series that changed a generation. Keek, did you see the movie prior to watching the TV show?
Actually, no. And I also came to the TV show very late. This was one of those things where I saw the trailer for Buffy the movie, and I am such a big fan of vampires that at the time I took them kind of more seriously than I do now. And I was like, oh, this looks really stupid and I don't want to watch this. And so I didn't. And then they announced the TV show and I was like, oh, they've made a TV show out of that really stupid movie I never wanted to see. And so I never watched it. And then years later, some friends kind of forced me to watch. I think the first episode of Buffy I ever watched was the musical episode. That's how into the series I came into it.
Wow.
Right? And then I was like, oh, this is kind of interesting, and I dig this. I have no idea what's going on, but I dig it. And so I went back and started watching the series from the beginning. Those friends let me borrow their DVDs and stuff, and I started, just blowing through it. And then I was like, I should watch that movie just to kind of see. And then I watched the movie and I was like, how do these two things go together?
Oh, yeah, the story between, the production on the Buffy movie is legendary of, studio interference and actors not wanting to do the script and oh boy. And, eventually, the when the TV show came around, having it be more like the original intended version of the movie, a bit more serious, a bit more dark comedy moments in the series were all supposed to be in the film, but Fox was like, let's do a lighter movie, let's do a comedy, let's do a movie that young people will want to go to see, not realizing that, young people like to be scared. That's why teenagers sneak into R-rated movies.
At the same time, when they got a hold of the script, they also took out a lot of the humor that Joss Whedon had put into the original script. Now, say what you want about Joss Whedon personally, he is very talented at comedy and script writing and what have you. The thing is that they removed so much of the kind of Whedon-esque comedy in the script. And while it is a more lighthearted comedy than the original script, it's also not as funny as it probably would have been originally.
And you can judge for yourself. The original script is out there. Buffyverse Wiki is probably the easiest way to read Whedon's original Buffy script. Again, you can read it yourself. You can make your own conclusions. did Fox make the right call, or was Wheaton in the right and to have the movie done a specific way? I don't know. Again, I'm going to leave that up to the decision of the listener. Eventually, Wheaton's original script was adapted into a comic book that is kind of considered the canon version of events to the Buffy TV series. So, like, it's similar enough to the movie, but a lot of Joss Whedon's darker elements of the original script were kept in, including Merrick's original death.
Yeah, we'll get to that later. But I will say, just if you know Joss's style, if you've seen, say, the TV series or any of Joss's, other work, you can kind of see the parts of the script where you're almost certain that was probably in the original script and got carried over.
Like, I can definitely see Wheaton writing a joke where Buffy, there's a dude flirting with her and he's eating a hot dog and Buffy cuts his hot dog in half. Symbolism. Yeah, I could see Josh writing that joke.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that the joke toward the end of the movie about we're immortal, we can do anything, and then Buffy says, really, clap. That almost certainly, I would put money, was a Joss original. There's some other ones in there that when you hear it, you're just like, that just rings so true to his style. This was one of those that, like you said, and we talk about it a lot because of my theory that movies rot from the top down. If something goes wrong with a movie, you always start at the very tippy top of the pyramid and work your way down to find out where things went wrong. And in this case, it went wrong from the tippity top, which was they kind of took the creative away from the original creator.
To the point where he walked. Joss walked.
The interesting thing is that one of the main reasons that Joss walked was that Donald Sutherland was apparently a real douche canoe.
Yeah, he had a habit of either improvising or altering lines in the script, and Wheaton didn't like that. And since Donald Sutherland is pretty much the highest profile actor in this movie at the time, and likely the highest paid actor in this movie, he could kind of get away with it. And when you're given the choice between this highly renowned actor in Donald Sutherland or a relatively unknown, unproven scriptwriter in Joss Whedon, who are you going to side with? Who is the big studio going to side with?
Yeah, I mean, Joss had some cred before this, but definitely was not the force he would become. By this point, he had already worked on like Roseanne and stuff. But he really was just like staff writing, So it wasn't like he was a complete unknown, but this was kind of his first attempt to kind of like lead a project. And so, yeah, you are absolutely correct that if it's Joss Whedon in like 1991 when they're filming this and Donald Sutherland, Joss Whedon is not the one that's going to win out. And Donald Sutherland just looked at the script and was like, I'm not doing just like, 80% of this stuff. I don't know why you would sign on to a movie and then decide you don't want to do the thing that was in the script you already read and agreed to.
Bill's got to get paid. And if he has the cred, he can alter the lines. He's going to do it. That's really what it comes down to. I mean, we've talked about, passion projects and stuff, but most of the time, actors are just doing these movies because they got to eat. The bills don't pay itself. Who's going to pay for the condo?
Yeah, and respect, but like if that's the script you sign on for, there is wiggle room and you can negotiate with the creator and go like, hey, I think maybe I'd like to play it this way, or do you think maybe, but like you said, and let's go ahead and get into it. It's spoilers if you've never seen it, but hi if this is your first episode with us, but if not, you know how this show goes. But okay, so Donald Sutherland is Merrick, the Watcher.
Buffy's first watcher.
Yeah, Buffy's first Watcher, and the thing is that it was always written in the script that he was going to die, but in the original script,
Should we put a trigger warning in here?
yeah, I mean, trigger warning for self-harm and firearms. In the original script, Rutger Hauer's evil vampire Lothos is about to turn Merrick into a vampire, which will give him access to Merrick's memories and be able to read his mind. And that will be able to let Lothos know where Buffy is and everything. And Merrick is trying to keep Buffy safe. And so before he fully turns into a vampire or whatever, I guess he had a firearm on him already. I don't know. But anyway, somehow he has a firearm and he puts it to his own head and ends himself before Lothos can read his mind and find out where Buffy is. It is an incredibly noble sacrifice, and it also gives Buffy kind of PTSD for the rest of the movie, because she feels absolutely like this is my fault because he sacrificed himself for me in a very real way.
Because she wasn't ready for that fight.
Yeah. She couldn't protect Merrick, and therefore that leads to his death. Well, Donald Sutherland just didn't like that, and he was like, I'm not going to do it. And so they changed it to the death you see in the movie, which is, Lothos is about to, bite Buffy or whatever, and Merrick tries to stake Lothos, and Lothos ends up plunging the stake into Merrick's chest instead.
It serves the same purpose.
I don't really think it does. I mean, I think it's less impactful than the original, because Merrick has a line right after that about well, I didn't see that coming, or something like that. It was kind of like, oops, I screwed that one up.
Accidental death versus noble sacrifice.
Yeah, but Merrick absolutely makes the sacrifice for Buffy in the original script. And so when Buffy is like, that's my fault, it is absolutely 100% kind of true in the original script, because she is unable to protect him in the fight they have. And then that leads to Merrick doing the noble sacrifice, whereas Merrick just kind of does a ridiculous attempt to, attack Lothos in the movie we see. And as an audience member, you're like, this isn't going to work. You should have just stood back and thrown eggs at him or something, almost anything other than what you did would have been a better plan, Merrick.
In both versions, yeah.
Well, I mean, in the original version, he was backed into a corner and did the noble thing. But in the way it plays out in the movie as is, it's almost like, throw a stuffed animal at him and you've got a better chance of surviving this situation.
Yeah. Another change in the movie is Buffy's age. In the original script and eventually the Buffy TV series, Buffy is a lot younger. In the original script, she was a freshman in high school, and she eventually becomes a sophomore by the time the series starts, which is 1 year after the events of the movie. In the movie itself, Buffy is a senior in high school, and they refer to the dance that they're at as the senior dance. I assume it is because Pike is supposed to be an older guy anyway, and they didn't want to have the age gap between the two characters be that much.
Yeah, let's talk about Pike for just a second. I mean, that was Luke Perry. Rest in peace, Luke Perry.
Luke Perry, father of pro wrestler Jack Perry.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, there was only a real life 3-year age difference between Luke Perry and Christy Swanson. So it's not like that was a real horrible, thing. They were both a little bit too old to be playing high schoolers and stuff. I mean, that was the joke about Beverly Hills anyway.
We'll get to that, because that also has a reflection into the production of this movie.
Yeah. So the actors, at least, were a relatively, decent match as far as ages. But you're supposed to believe, like, she's a senior in high school and he's maybe, like, I don't know, 19 or so. So,
College age student, but he clearly doesn't go. He doesn't go to the high school. He's clearly past high school age.
yeah. But it's like he's just old enough to be like the dashing, quote unquote, older guy, but not enough to be like, a worrisome age difference,
And they would play that up in the TV show with Buffy and Angel.
Well, yeah, that is a worrisome age difference because that's several hundred years of age difference.
But yeah, and Luke Perry's commitment to Beverly Hills 90210 meant that they only had 5 weeks to film this movie. That is, everything that needed to be shot had to be done in 5 weeks, so Perry could go back and film the show, which is kind of a small turnaround in terms of a movie like this, but they didn't really have a choice. And in doing my research for this movie, and we talked about this right before we started recording here, the production company of the movie, yes, this is a Fox film, but the production company, Sandollar, Dolly Parton was running it. So yeah, Dolly Parton has a connection to Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, it was kind of like, when we talk about how without Lucille Ball, we wouldn't have Star Trek. Yeah, without Dolly Parton, we wouldn't have Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Yeah, kind of fun to think about. It's one of those, fun facts that you'll throw out at a party or something. Let's kind of go with this. Buffy, her surname Summers is never said in the movie. That was not added until the TV show. But Buffy Summers here, senior in high school, cheerleader, part of the dance committee, and she has recently been getting dreams of past Slayers. In this movie, it is implied that these are past lives that she's had, that she has been the Slayer in various lifetimes. And Donald Sutherland's character, Merrick, has been her watcher in each and every one of her lives, both of them getting born into new lives and finding each other and training her to become the Slayer. And when she dies, she is born again, and the cycle continues. So now she's getting these dreams of her past lives. Vampires are starting to show up in Los Angeles. She hasn't moved to Sunnydale yet. And Merrick is following her and her friends, trying to get to Buffy because she needs to be taught. In fact, she should have been taught a long time ago. And Merrick does say that the reason she never approached her sooner was because he was not sure she was the Slayer. Mostly because the Slayers, at least in this movie anyway, the Slayer is shown to have a mole-like birthmark on their chest, which Buffy has said she got removed years ago.
Because Buffy is that sort of chick.
Yeah, I mean, prior to becoming a Slayer in all versions of the story, she is that chick, even in the original script. So yeah, and as their training goes, she starts to show these abilities that she's had, And again, if you're in any way familiar to the Buffy mythos, you kind of know that's just part of being the Slayer, is you get these abilities. And that's her thing. She's going to fight Lothos, and that is her destiny. Apparently, she has fought Lothos in each and every one of her lives and has lost every single time, which makes this time so much more important because she has to win to prevent Lothos from taking over the world or something. It's interesting in watching this movie because there are people in this movie I forgot was in the movie. And a lot of these people are like, they weren't exactly well known at the time. Because we have like I'm surprised that Hilary Swank was in this movie. Ben Affleck makes a cameo. Ricky Lake plays a waitress. Very funny considering how he would be attached to the franchise later. But Seth Green makes a cameo as a vampire.
Well, actually, you can't see him in the movie because his scene was cut. Yeah. There are actually two people that were in the movie and the TV show. The other actor is named Chimwe Lo and played a vampire in the movie, and then the character of Craig Fong in the TV series. I think Chimwe Lo you can still see in the movie, but the Seth Green scene is only available as a deleted scene, so you have to look up the deleted scenes to be able to see his bit. So if you just watch, like if you go on Disney Plus and just watch like the theatrical cut, you will not see Seth Green. You will, however, Ben Affleck. He's the basketball player when the vampire gets on the basketball court towards the end of the movie and starts taking over the game. Ben Affleck is the player on the opposing team that just hands over the ball and is like, here, you take it. I had forgotten that Hilary Swank was in this, and I had forgotten that Stephen Root was in this.
David Arquette, former WCW World Heavyweight Champion David Arquette,
Yeah.
in the movie, and his sister, Alexis Arquette, plays the DJ, the vampire DJ.
The one person I had really forgotten was in this movie is Candy Clark, playing Buffy's unnamed mother in this. She would get the name of Joyce in the TV series, but she's just Buffy's mom in here. Candy Clark, some people will know her better for American Graffiti because she got a nomination for the Oscar for that. I know her better because she was the love interest for David Bowie in The Man Who Fell to Earth. She is the only person in this movie I've ever had any sort of contact with, and she's very sweet. Yeah, it was kind of shocking for me to see this film and be like, I had forgotten that she was in this. She's only in like one scene, I think, maybe two, but yeah, the original Joyce Summers.
And yeah, Buffy also has a dad in her life in this movie. The one
We don't
time we
see
see
him.
Yeah. And continuity-wise, it would be explained that after the events of this film, their parents would get a divorce, and Buffy and Joyce would eventually move to Sunnydale, and thus the TV show would start.
Speaking of David Bowie, originally he was supposed to have a cameo in here as a vampire, along with Mick Jagger and Carrie Elways.
That would have been fun.
Yeah, and all of that happened. Like you said, they had like 5 weeks to film this, and the budget was really small, so that idea got scrapped. So yeah, that never happened, and that sucks.
And we've danced around it at this point, but that's last but not least. Paul Rubens as Lothos's little lackey, Amelin.
And Amelin was originally supposed to be a woman. It was written as a woman and had to be rewritten when the original actor they wanted to cast wasn't able to do it. Paul Rubens was a kind of like last minute replacement, which I do not want to live in the universe where Paul Rubens is not playing this part, because this is maybe one of the best things about the film.
Yeah, a rare, at least at this point in his career, a rare non-Pee Wee Herman role, and I believe this would be post the theater incident.
This was literally the first thing he filmed after the arrest. I mean, this was literally like months after the arrest.
Seen any good movies lately?
Yeah. So this, and the thing is I think it was kind of worked in his favor that he had not really done much except for Pee-wee at this point in the public eye.
Other than, Star Tours and Flight of the Navigator, all of his other major roles had been as Pee Wee Herman. All of his cameo roles in other movies were as Pee Wee Herman. You can count the number of non-Pee Wee roles he had at this point in his career on one hand and still have fingers left over.
And he has a very non-Pee Wee look in this film. Like, if you didn't know it was him, you wouldn't know it was him.
So right after this would be Batman Returns, where he would play the Penguin's father. And that was only for one scene.
Yeah.
So, and he milks it. The performance he gives in this movie is in the campy tone of the shooting script. Would it have worked in the original tone of Wheaton's script? Probably not. but he is hamming it up, and it works in the favor of this script.
The thing is, though, is I think if they'd have gone with the darker tone, I think he could have also nailed that as well.
I think so.
I think he went with Paul Rubens was a consummate professional, and he, from everything I have heard about the way he worked, he was the exact opposite of Donald Sutherland. Let's just put it that way. Like, he had his own sense of artistry, of course, but if you hired him for a project, what I've heard is like, okay, he would do the thing you wanted, So I think they asked him to do like a campy vampire, and he was like, all right, that's what you're gonna get. And he delivered in spades. I think if they had gone for the darker original tone, he would have delivered that,
And we talked about this before. He kept the wig that he wore in the movie and would reuse it in his cameo in What We Do in the Shadows, reprising the role from this film.
Yeah. And while we're talking about him, let's just talk about that death scene, because I really want to talk about that death scene. This is the best death scene ever put to film.
So good, it extends into the post-credit scene.
Yep.
Because it's right before the end of the movie, right before the final battle with Lothos, and he's right there. He's gloating, is that you're not ready. You won't beat us. Vampires are immortal. We can do everything. And like you said, Buffy responds that, okay, clap. Because he had lost his arm.
Because he had lost the arm in his... because he was trying to kill Pike earlier, and Pike ended up driving his van into, a tree and taking off Emmeline's arm. But the great thing is that she stakes him, and probably because of the budget, I have a feeling that Joss probably wrote the vampire dusting thing into this, and then they were like, we don't have the money for that, So in this, the vampires just, fall over with stakes in their chest. But so she stakes Emmeline, and then he falls out of frame, and she turns around to like, okay, time to deal with the rest of the vampires. And then he pops up behind her in frame and is just like, and
like looks at Buffy, Emmeline's looking at Buffy. It's not even a proper stake, it's a ruler.
Yeah, because she's using whatever is around in the gym for the dance that they're attacking.
So, like, it feels like this was an outtake that they decided to keep into the movie, just of how over-the-top Paul Rubens is playing that scene. He dives out of frame. He comes back into frame. So, Christy Swanson just looks at Paul Rubens, and he's going, Hi, how you doing? So, like, it feels like this was an outtake that they just kept in the movie. It could be either or. Just because of how over-the-top Paul Rubens is doing that death.
But I love that she kind of looks at him like, are you done yet? I have other vampires to get to,
I gotta get to the big bad so we can end this movie.
Yeah.
But I love the whole setup to that, because they're fighting, and then Lothos just shows up, and Emmeline is like, okay, boss is gonna save me. And then Lothos just shakes his head no, like, really? Boss, really? You're not going to let her kill me? Oh, wow, he's going to really let her kill me. Oh, crap. And it's the acting on Paul Rubens' face. If they had let him, I'm pretty sure Paul Rubens would have shed a tear, seeing his master allow him to die like. Because that's the look that Emmeline gives Lothos right before he's staked.
Yeah.
And yeah, like he's not even finished dying, because we do get the post-credit scene where he's still dying.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think Buffy got him in the heart. I think he just got him generally in the chest. And he's just, like, I'm just going to pretend to die so they leave me alone. I do want to talk about Lothos, though. Lothos is very classic vampire, very 1930s Dracula kind of inspired. because he has the suit, he has the flowing cape, but he's also like has the dad bod going on. And I think that kind of works in this version of the movie's favor because he is trying to be that romantic Dracula, good evening type of vampire, but he also looks like he's been drinking for the last 20 years. So he still thinks he can get with the ladies, but it's like, you look like my unemployed uncle.
Yeah. And also, it's Rutger Hauer. Come on.
But the final battle is anticlimactic. But again, that works in the favor of this version of the movie. Because you have the cool part, which is, Buffy. One of the things about Merrick's death, at least the original version of Merrick's death, was that it was supposed to bring Buffy closer to her faith. As she starts praying, she starts carrying more crucifixes and whatnot in her life as a way to atone. But and in this movie, she brings out the crucifix and the crucifix is on fire. And I love Lotho's response to that. That's how you're going to beat me, with your puny faith. And of course, I always know this is this one scene that has always stuck with me in no matter how long it's been since I've seen this movie, that one scene picks up with me. She has the crucifix, it's on fire, and Lotho says, "That's how you're going to beat me, with your puny faith." Takes out the can of hairspray and says, "No, my keen fashion sense," and just turns that sucker on, turns that into a blowtorch, and just burns Lothos with the fire. And I know that's not the ending in the original script, but I feel like that should have been the ending. But then we get, he comes back from that, like he just shakes off the fire like it was nothing. That, but there's also a bit of a, okay, this witch got something going on about it. But we finally get to the final battle in the gym during the dance, and it's just, a few flips, stake to the heart, boom, dead.
Yeah, I mean, the reason it feels so anticlimactic is because they wouldn't let them do the original ending. Because the original ending was Buffy trapped all of the vampires in the school gym and then set the gym on fire to kill all the vampires.
Which is referenced in the Buffy TV show.
Yeah, and that is the thing, is that it is referenced in the Buffy TV show. I think both Joyce and the principal reference that Buffy got kicked out of her former school and they had to move to Sunnydale because she burned down the school gym.
There was no way they were going to have the budget for that. Not for this movie. It is very interesting how much of that original script gets referenced into the series versus events in the movie getting referenced into the series. Whedon himself referring to his script as canon versus the movie's canon.
Yeah, the thing, okay, let's talk about some things that do actually happen in the film and some of the things that I like. The thing is that Pike nearly, eats it several times at the beginning of this movie. He and Benny, David Arquette, they're best friends and they're hanging out together. And at the beginning of the movie, when the vampires first show up, the two of them are absolutely wasted on like booze and probably some other chemicals.
Again,
they're like on an overpass in the mountains, in the hills overlooking LA. And a vampire pops up and grabs Benny, and Pike passes out, and Merrick saves him from getting turned by the vampire. And then, like, the next night, Benny, now a vampire, shows up at Pike's apartment over the garage that he works at. And the thing is that Pike would have probably ended up a vampire at this point, thanks to Benny, if Benny wasn't so stupid. Because instead of like just showing up at the door and being like, "Hey bro, let me in," at which point Pike would have been like, "Yeah, come on in," because he wouldn't have had a reason not to do that. Benny, in the most hilarious scene, flies up to the window and floats outside the window being like, "Dude, let me in." And Pike is just together enough at this point to be like, no, dude, because you're floating outside my window.
Yeah, and he even tells his boss, "Hey, if you see Benny, run. Something ain't right with him."
Like, Pike is still, like, really hungover and possibly still on some sort of chemical, you know?
Yeah.
But
I
he
don't
is,
think he's on that good of drugs to believe that his friend is flying.
yeah, but he's just with it enough to come to his senses and go like, wait, I am on the second floor and you are floating, and that's not normal.
I want to mention a little bit again. It's not necessarily really because the movie, and yes, the TV show plays it up as well, but the movie dealing with Buffy's new double lifestyle as the Slayer and still her trying to be a high school student. She's a cheerleader, and because of her duties as the Slayer, she has to give up cheerleading. She's on the dance committee, and because of this new exposure to the world as a Slayer, she's no longer interested in working with the dance committee. She is now changing her views on certain things, to which her friends who are very much trying to find the right word. Airheads, I believe. Apologies to any airheads, but it's the typical California airhead girl not in the 90s tropes. That's Buffy at the beginning of the movie and all of her friends. And as Buffy is exposed to more of this world of vampires, her worldview changes and she starts to think, hey, it's just a dance. It doesn't mean anything. Hey, there are vampires out there trying to take over the world and that's more important. Versus her friends are saying, this is the best, this is the only night that matters. It's the final dance of our final year of high school. Should be the most important day of our lives. What's wrong with you, Buffy?
Well, except for prom,
Mm-hmm.
and except for the homecoming dance, and except for the I do like that scene where they're like, this is the final dance. And then they start remembering all the other dances they have before the end of the year.
Yeah. And I do like how Hilary Swank's character, she starts out as Buffy's friend and she kind of becomes sort of an antagonist in a way. Like at the beginning of the movie, they're at the mall and Buffy wants to buy this jacket and all of her friends are telling, yeah, don't buy that jacket. That's so last season. No one wants that jacket, only for Hilary Swank to buy the jacket anyway, saying, well, now it's retro, which means it's cool.
Yeah, but she kind of gets her own by the end of the movie because, like, I like that Stephen Root just, like, absolutely brains her into the wall during the
So
final.
yeah, she ends up inviting the vampires because half the senior class has now been turned into vampires because they're seniors. We have to invite them to the dance. And like the freaking school principal just brains her into the wall and she has a concussion for the rest of the movie. She clearly has a concussion in the post-credit scene where she's giving her interview to the reporter. I will do all of my duties as the new Miss America.
Another person I forgot was in this movie, Liz Smith, entertainment reporter Liz Smith. Wow.
But I want to talk a little bit. I don't remember the boyfriend's name. Because in the beginning, Buffy has a boyfriend, and he has, in his own words, he has needs. Jeffrey, okay. Early in the movie, they're making out, and it's very like all of his friends are going, hey, dude, can you get your girlfriend's ass off me while you're kissing her? Because she's sitting here. They have their little movie night at the house, and he's trying to sleep with her. And because of her newfound responsibility as the Slayer, they're not really seeing each other anymore. And he ends up breaking up with her, not just over the phone, but to her answering machine because she's not home because she's out patrolling. And ends up dating like one of her friends to the prom. And he says, I have needs. And he gets his needs met in the backseat of a car during Buffy's fight with the vampires.
If you pay attention in the post-credit sequence when they're all giving their interviews, because the girl he takes to the final dance instead of Buffy, she is giving an interview with him at the end of the movie, and he's kind of giving, the interview and talking most. And then all of a sudden the girl goes, I can't believe I let you do that to me, and then storms off. And it's very obvious that what she's talking about. Like, she had her first time with him that night, and now she's regretting it. Like, it's really obvious, but it's kind of just, like, it's really obvious, but it's kind of glossed over and easy to miss if you're not paying attention.
But you do kind of feel for Buffy in that moment that this was the guy that she wanted to take to the dance, and this is the the cute guy in school. She's the cheerleader. It's popular girl, popular guy. It's high school. But for him to dump her because he wants to get some, and she's trying to keep this as PG-13 as possible, is he go all the way with him. Not that wouldn't happen in high school, because it absolutely would, but it's like, it's kind of not, you do feel for Buffy in that moment. It's like, she wasn't ready, obviously. She would be ready later on, but she also is, I have this responsibility that has been put upon me. I have to go out in the night and fight the vampires, and I then have to go and do my duty at school and whatnot. And then all of a sudden, here's this guy that she's been seeing that she wanted to take to the dance, not only taking another girl, but getting what he wanted from another girl. And that seems to be the only thing he cared about.
The thing that was funny to me about him having needs or whatever is earlier in the movie, after she starts being more of her Slayer personality, he grabs her butt in the hallway and is like, I have a need. And she grabs his arm and like flips him in the hallway. And he's like, it's okay, I don't have that bad of a need.
I love that. She says, don't you ever touch me again. And, like, more women should be like that to grabby men. I'll say it. To the point where he's scared of her by the time we get to the dance. Is like, because he's looking for her boyfriend. It's like, will you hurt me if I tell you no? No? Then no. So it's like, in the aftermath of all of this, Pike and Buffy have their little dance at the school after it's been, the whole dance has been destroyed by the vampires. And they have their little moment, and they get on their motorcycle, and they're off to who knows where. Again, the original script had them kind of become a team. They're off to hunt vampires in other places. The original script had them going to a castle that may or may not have vampires in it. The comic adaptation has this castle be in Vegas, and Pike kind of being nervous about it. Not that they're going to fight vampires, but Buffy, you're not old enough to gamble yet. I don't know what we're going to do if we're not going to fight vampires. Which, to kind of explain why Pike is not in the series, they would have their adventure in Vegas in the comics. They would have a falling out after that adventure, as Pike sees himself more as a burden to Buffy than aid. And like I said, Buffy's parents do get a divorce, and which would lead to Buffy and her mom moving to Sunnydale, and therein lies the TV series. I'm kind of torn in the fact that Pike never shows up in the series. Like, they don't recast him, because they did recast Merrick for the flashbacks in the TV show. So I don't know why they didn't recast Pike, because he's still out there. He never died or anything.
Yeah.
So it's like, we never see Pike ever again. But the movie does get that happy ending of them riding off into the sunrise on a motorcycle. And yeah, if you ever wonder why Buffy and Pike aren't a thing anymore, the comics do explain it. The original Dark Horse comics, I will stress that. I actually, as I showed Kiki off mic, I actually still have my copy of the Buffy the Vampire Slayer Omnibus Volume 1 from Dark Horse Comics from 2007. This Omnibus comic is almost 20 years old, and I still have it. It is one of my crown jewels in my comic collection, just because it does have the canonical adaptation of the Buffy movie into the Buffy TV show. So it's still, obviously it's a almost 20-year-old comic. I have seen the comic at used bookstores online. If you're able to, go for it. The comic is also available digitally if you don't want to hunt down a physical copy. I do recommend it. the comic adaptation, if you're wondering how the events of the film are adapted to better fit into the world created for the television show. So, Kiki, does Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the original movie, have the magic?
I think so.
As an individual entity, if you can divorce yourself from the TV show in terms of this movie, like whatever expectations you have of the TV show, whatever love you have for the TV show, if you can divorce yourself from that just enough, I think this movie still has the magic. And you can definitely enjoy the movie in its own bubble. But if you're coming into the movie having never seen the movie with the same expectations you have of the TV show, you are going to probably be disappointed. So next week, we wrap up the spooky season. We've done zombies, we've done aliens, we've done vampires. Let's go to the most scariest monster you can think of. Man. We get into psychological horror with the movie 1 Hour Photo. Robin Williams as a psychopath. And that's all I need to sell you on that.
And just fair warning, it will be an R-rated movie, so maybe bring your little ones back after that. But yeah, next week, R-rated spooky season details.
So yes, come back next week for 1 Hour Photo, and we will talk to you all next time. Bye.
Bye.
Don't let the magic stop here.
Keep the conversation going. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Threads at Rewatching the Magic.
We are also on Blue Sky, rewatchingthemagic.bsky.social. And new episodes are available at rewatchingthemagic.podbean.com and youtube.com/@rewatchingthemagic. Remember, the magic is for everyone.
It only stops if you let it.
We know that right now, things are tough.
But in the words of Jim Henson, the only way the magic works is by hard work. But hard work can be fun.
Check out our show notes for ways that you can help.